Welcome to Does It Matter by Brainy Ballers, where we dissect the game with cutting-edge analytics to give you the upper hand. We analyze everything from hand sizes to average depth of targets to uncover hidden trends that no one else sees. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to data-driven domination. Because here at Brainy Ballers, we don't just watch the game, we understand it. So get ready, it's podcast time.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a really specific question, one that might change how you look at your fantasy roster. Does a DB's weight actually predict their NFL success? Especially for fantasy points. So our mission here is to kind of pull out the key stuff from this big analysis. It covers data from 2003 right up to 2023.
A long stretch, and it looks at the top 50 fantasy finishers each season.
Free safeties, strong safeties, all of them.
And importantly, it compares those top guys to what they call the bottom 10.
Right, players finishing 41st to 50th. The idea was to get a clear comparison without, those fringe players maybe skewing things.
Makes sense. Keep the comparison focused.
Okay, so let's unpack the first bit, the initial look at average weights. It was pretty striking. In a huge 81% of seasons, that's 17 out of 21 years, the top 10 fantasy DBs either weighed the same or more than the guys finishing down in that 31st to 50th group.
81%. That definitely makes you lean towards thinking weight matters.
Yeah, it certainly hinted at some kind of correlation right off the bat.
But what's fascinating is how they then tried to pinpoint, like, a specific weight. They used this detailed differences chart, basically comparing performance group by group based on weight increment. A pretty clear threshold seemed to emerge around 197 pounds. It looked like performance really started to pick up for guys at or above that weight.
197 pounds. Interesting.
And they tried to verify that. So they look at almost 200 DBs who finished in that bottom 10 range since 2003.
Okay.
And about 59%, let's say 59.4% of those guys were at or above 197 pounds.
All right, so a majority, but not overwhelming. What about the top guys?
Right. So then they compared that to about 192 guys who finished in the top 10 over the same period.
And the percentage there.
Do you want to start dominating your drafts? At BrainyBallers.com, we've researched every metric under the sun for you to find which ones are best linked to fantasy points. You can access hundreds of metrics to sharpen your scouting ability so you know which metrics matter and which are just noise. Stop guessing on which thresholds to look for within each metric. Big numbers can be misleading or irrelevant. Our Ultimate Athlete Blueprints reveal essential scouting metrics, their importance and benchmarks within each metric that help predict a player's probability of being a success or bust. Elevate your scouting ability with Brainy Ballers' Ultimate Athlete Blueprints today. Click the link in the description. Now back to the show.
It jumped to 75%. Fully 3/4 of the top 10 finishers were 197 pounds or heavier.
Wow. Okay, 75% versus 59%? That's like a 15-16% difference?
Yeah, 15.6% increase from the bottom group to the top group being in that 197 plus range.
So, looking at that, it seems pretty definitive, doesn't it? Heavier DBs perform better. Threshold is 197.
On the surface, absolutely. It paints a compelling picture. But, averages and percentages can sometimes hide the full story.
Okay, so this is where the more rigorous stats come in.
Exactly. This raises that important question. Is this observed pattern statistically significant? Does it actually have predictive power?
And what did the standard test say?
They ran the numbers using standard methods, looking for that statistical correlation. The Pearson value for DB weight and fantasy production came out at 0.098.
0.098. Okay, what does 0.098 mean practically?
It means there's basically no significant linear correlation. You typically want at least a 0.1, maybe higher, to even start considering it meaningful. And just for context, think about QB draft capital. That matters for QBs. That has a Pearson value of negative 0.219, much stronger, even though it was negative in that case, compared to that 0.098 for DB weight.
Wow. So that compelling 197-pound threshold, the 15.6% difference, it doesn't translate statistically.
Not in terms of a reliable predictive correlation, no.
Did they look if maybe this changed over time? Like maybe weight mattered more in the early 2000s or something?
Good question. They did break it down by decade, comparing the weight ranges for top, middle, and bottom finishers across different eras.
Any trends?
Nope. no definitive trend popped out. It suggests this lack of strong correlation between weight and fantasy success has been pretty consistent over the last 20 years or so.
Okay, so let's boil this down. What's this all mean for you, the listener, when you're prepping for your fantasy draft?
Well, it's a classic case of an interesting observation versus an actionable predictor.
Right. We saw that pattern 197 pounds looks like a sweet spot based on who finishes high. More top guys are above that weight.
Exactly. That observation is true based on the averages and the top-tier representation. But the rigorous testing, the correlation check, says this number, this weight factor, should not really be a significant part of your scouting process for predicting fantasy success.
So it's like maybe heavier DBs happen to be successful for other reasons, but the weight itself isn't the cause or the reliable signal we might have thought from the first look?
That's a good way to put it. It's an interesting characteristic, maybe common among top performers, but not something to heavily weigh, pardon the pun, in your evaluation based on this data.
It's a real curveball after those initial findings.
It absolutely is. For anyone analyzing data, not just in fantasy football. In this world where we're just swimming in data points, how do you decide what's actually useful? When you see a pattern, like an optimal range, based on who performs well, but then the deeper statistical tests show no significant link, what do you prioritize when you make your own decisions, your own assessments? It's something to really think about.